This is a message to each of you who are thinking about the 26th of October. Maybe you're worried, maybe you're scared. Maybe you think you might lose your job, maybe you think you might get put in prison.
For me, behind bars, the way I was treated, I was taken to a prison with quite a low Muslim population. What I'm known for is criticising Islam, so there's been many planned attempts to murder me and kill me in this country.
Let's send a message to the world, to Keir Starmer especially, that the fight is not gone, okay? Not in us anyway. I am travelling back to the UK for literally the fight of my life.
Have you ever felt like the system was rigged against you? That no matter how hard you tried to speak up, powerful forces were working to shut you down? That's exactly how Tommy Robinson says he feels right now, locked away in solitary confinement for 21 hours a day. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now, back to the video. Whether you agree with Robinson's views or not, his latest exposé on Keir Starmer forces us to confront some uncomfortable questions. Are we really as free to speak our minds as we think? Or is there a price to pay for challenging those in power? As we peel back the layers of Tommy Robinson's incarceration, a disturbing picture emerges that challenges our understanding of justice and punishment in modern Britain. While most prisoners enjoy a degree of social interaction and relative freedom within the confines of their cells, Robinson's experience paints a starkly different reality. Imagine, if you will, spending 21 hours a day in a small, austere room with nothing but your thoughts for company. This isn't a dystopian fiction, it's the daily reality for Tommy Robinson. The controversial figure finds himself subjected to conditions that many would argue border on cruel and unusual punishment. Robinson himself has described it as mental torture, a claim that gains credibility when we consider the warnings from mental health professionals about the devastating effects of such extreme isolation. But why is Robinson
not seeing or speaking to anybody, and they used the reason that I was in danger. Now, they would have had risk assessments before I went there. I was purposely taken to be put in danger so that then that reason can be used to then put me on solitary confinement.
Men right now are fighting for their lives in prison, who have been falsely imprisoned, unlawfully imprisoned, pressured and forced and blackmailed to plead guilty to crimes they haven't committed. All of this will come up in our documentary, which will premiere on the 26th of October.
And it took months before I got the opportunity to go before a judge. Once the judge heard what had happened in the trial, we found so many illegal and wrongdoings within this kangaroo court.
A civil offender being held in a maximum security facility typically reserved for the most dangerous criminals. This question becomes even more pressing when we consider that he should, by rights, be in an open prison where inmates have jobs, family visits, and a semblance of normalcy. Instead, Robinson's daily routine is a monotonous cycle of confinement, broken only by brief periods of exercise and personal hygiene. The contrast between Robinson's treatment and that of other inmates is striking. While he languishes in isolation, prisoners convicted of far more serious crimes are allowed to share meals, socialize, and maintain a sense of community. This disparity raises uncomfortable questions about the true purpose of Robinson's confinement. Is it rehabilitation or something more sinister? Critics of Robinson's treatment argue that this level of isolation goes beyond standard security measures, veering into the realm of political silencing. The fact that decisions regarding his confinement allegedly come from the government rather than prison authorities only adds fuel to this fire. It's a scenario that should give pause to anyone concerned about civil liberties, regardless of their opinion on Robinson himself. The implications of Robinson's case extend far beyond the walls of his cell. It forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about the potential misuse of power in our justice system. If solitary confinement can be wielded as a tool to muzzle dissenting voices, what does that say about the state of free speech in the UK? As the controversy surrounding Tommy Robinson's confinement rages on, all eyes turn to Keir Starmer, the Labour leader who's found himself at the centre of a political firestorm. Starmer's public condemnation of Robinson as a thug seems straightforward enough, but a closer look reveals a web of contradictions that's raising eyebrows across the political spectrum. Starmer's hard-line stance against Robinson isn't just about one man's imprisonment. It's part of a broader narrative he's pushing about the grooming gang scandal that's rocked the UK. In a move that's left many scratching their heads, Starmer has accused those calling for an inquiry into the scandal of amplifying far-right narratives. It's a bold claim, and one that's not sitting well with everyone. In a column for The Sun, Starmer doubled down on his position, arguing that what's needed is action, not more inquiries. "What I won't tolerate is politicians jumping on the bandwagon simply to get attention," he wrote. "It just needs action." It's a catchy soundbite, but is it really addressing the concerns of those affected by the scandal? The backlash against Starmer's comments has been swift and fierce. Many in working-class communities feel that he's dismissing the concerns of victims and those advocating for justice. It's a dangerous game Starmer's playing, and one that could potentially alienate a significant portion of Labour's traditional voter base. But here's where things get really interesting. Starmer's record as Director of Public Prosecutions is coming under scrutiny, and the picture it paints isn't pretty. Critics are suggesting that during his tenure, Starmer failed to adequately address issues related to child sexual abuse. It's a damning accusation, and one that calls into question his credibility on the entire Robinson issue. So why is Starmer taking such a hard line against Robinson? Is it really about justice, or is there something more at play? Some are suggesting that Starmer's stance is more about political maneuvering than genuine concern for the victims of grooming gangs. The irony is that Starmer's attempts to discredit Robinson may be having the opposite effect. Robinson's narrative of being a voice for the voiceless is resonating with marginalized segments of British society. They see him as a symbol of resistance against government overreach, a defender of free speech in an increasingly censorious world. This whole debacle has ignited a national conversation about the balance between political correctness and justice. Many are questioning whether the current political leadership truly represents the interests of the public. Starmer's approach, rather than building trust, seems to be undermining faith in political institutions. The Robinson case has become a lightning rod for debate about the state of British democracy and free speech. Experts predict it will have far-reaching consequences, potentially leading to increased scrutiny of governmental power and a re-evaluation of civil liberties. This situation reflects broader concerns about how dissenting voices are treated within the justice system, even when those voices are controversial. As viewers, we must ask ourselves, at what point does security trump individual rights? And who gets to make that decision? The true measure of a society isn't how it treats its most beloved figures, but how it handles its most divisive ones. Robinson's case, regardless of one's personal views on the man himself, forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about power, dissent, and the very foundations of our democratic system. So, what's your take? Is British democracy robust enough to withstand this test, or are we witnessing the erosion of fundamental freedoms? The answer might just determine the future of free speech in the UK.